Hola, where are my podcast people at? We've got some podcast pandemonio coming your way. For this activity, I actually want you to think about how you can use podcasts as a resource for getting you to use more Spanish listening skills. I've linked below here, and there's icons, two different podcasts that are basically like language learning podcasts, but they're cool because they offer really good opportunities to hear Spanish spoken very well, and then they kind of break things down. Both of them aren't totally in Spanish. They have other parts in English to help provide some guidance to the listener. So you can kind of scroll through either some podcast episodes from the Duolingo podcast or from this Coffee Break Spanish podcast. But it's important, again, to think about the types of questions that I'll be asking you when you're all done. So if you go to the My Work slide or the Mi Trabajo slide, it just says that I want you to choose 3 of these kind of reflection questions and have those serve as part of your answers in here. So it says, it's like, give a brief summary of what happened in the episode you listened to. What did the experience of having to listen to this episode teach you about your abilities in Spanish? If you had a chance to read/hear some words that you already know, and if parts of this made sense to you just because of those word learning strategies that we know, like recognizing cognates, right? Recognizing context clues, etc. And then kind of how this could be a useful skill to you moving forward. Basically just doing some reflecting about your experience. So when we go back to the assignment here and we check out the kind of podcasts that you have available to you, like I said, I linked some from Duolingo. And when you scroll through here, you'll notice that there's some links to where to listen to this podcast. You can use those if you want to. Otherwise, you can listen to them right from here. So if you find one that looks interesting to you, like Otro Camino hacia la Victoria, a different path to victory, it's going to be something about Francisco San Clemente. He's on the verge of professional soccer success, but then a serious illness leaves him wheelchair bound, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so if that one sounds interesting to you, the idea of him having to redefine his life as an athlete, you can read more about it, or you can even visit this podcast page, and then it'll say how to listen. You can obviously listen using one of those different resources, or you can simply click play right here. I recommend using this play button right inside of the website because look at right below this is the transcript where the podcast host and the character that they're interviewing will kind of have it'll have what they say in here. So it'll allow you to kind of read through as you're hearing the episode. And it might seem long, but you guys, but this is what's cool is that, if it leads to some fatigue and some kind of stress about having to listen to so much Spanish, well, that's really what it takes. And if you guys are taking this seriously, all of the opportunities that you have to practice Spanish in a very interesting and fascinating way, well, this is one way to do it. So that's one resource you have for listening to podcasts. And then the other one is this Coffee Break Spanish. And this one's cool because it's actually split up into more specific types of skills. So let's say like you wanted to learn a specific skill in Spanish that we haven't yet had time to cover this year in class. Let's say you wanted to practice focusing on let's see. This one right here says, a conversation with a chemist. All right, so like a visit to a pharmacy, some vocab that'll be related to visiting a pharmacy, so maybe some medical vocabulary. This one says tourist information office asking about what there is to do in Santiago de la Ribera. This one down here says checking into a hotel, so information about how to check into a hotel, vocab related to that. This one here says it's a conversation with some Spanish football supporters or soccer supporters, okay? So it might be some sports related vocabulary. So read through these descriptions first before you decide which one you might want to listen to, and then you can just click on that episode. And similarly to the last page I showed you, all you have to do to listen then is just click this play button right here, and it'll play through the podcast. Now, most of these are not terribly long, and you can kind of skip ahead the advertisements and things like that, but do take some time to actually sit and listen and just live and absorb yourself in the Spanish. We haven't had a chance to do that for a long while, so I want you to take it seriously.